Welcome to the It's Your Choice podcast, where we learn how to rewire our brains to live the life we desire. On with the show. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have Jack Miller with us. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So,
I'm in sunny
Jack, you
South
have
Florida. Where are
written.
you from
Oh,
or
sorry,
at?
go ahead.
I say I'm in sunny South Florida. Where are you at today?
At this moment, I am in the country of Montenegro, so in Europe.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tiny country, but it's a very beautiful country, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I can't say I know much about that country at all. So
Yeah,
I do have,
most people don't. I think the population of the country is about 650,000 people. So it's pretty
we
small.
have more than that in the county that I'm in right now.
Yes. Yeah, it's true, but it's beautiful and people should check it out. It really is beautiful. It's a great place to relax, that's for sure.
Awesome.
So Jack, you've written a book called Wisdom Accelerators, and it's a book that invites people to explore some of life's most profound mysteries through a unique lens called hydroviews. So, can you tell us a little bit about your book and what are hydroviews?
All right, I'll start with what hydroviews are to begin with. About 16 years ago, I was blessed with tongue and throat cancer. And
Oh.
that, after the recovery, I did the chemo and radiation. I tried the natural process and it wasn't working. I finally went to stage 4, and the doctor said, you better do something or you're not going to make it. So I went chemo and radiation, and it beat the heck out of me. But right after that, I watched the movie What's Bleep? And I saw the pictures of Dr. Emoto's water crystals, and there was just something spoke to me that said, learn all you can about water. So I did that. I started using some water therapies and really started a pretty fast recovery. And I'm probably in better shape now because of water and other things. Water is not the only thing. It requires good thought, exercise, and a whole lot of other stuff. But I started learning about water and the unique properties of water. IBM has been spent billions of dollars studying water, and they've actually found 73 anomalies to physics within water. We know of the one where water is what we think a solid, a liquid, a gas, and the fact that
Mhm.
every other substance on the planet gets colder, denser, except for water. Water at 39 degrees or 4 degrees Celsius changes and starts to expand. That's the reason ice floats. If ice didn't float, rivers and streams would freeze from the bottom up and kill everything in the water. But that's only one of the unique mysteries. In the last year, a little over a year, I started hearing about this fourth phase of water. And the fourth phase of water is something very few people know anything about, but it's the reason life works. In Montenegro, you've got some waterfalls, I assume, some beautiful
Yes.
waterfalls. Have you ever
Yeah.
wondered how water gets to the top of the mountain to fall down to get there, even when it hasn't snowed or rained in months?
I haven't really thought about it, but I figured it's just slowly melting from the winter and then the rain, and it takes time to trickle down, or it flows from
And
other
quite
rivers
honestly,
that flow down.
I've talked to people all over the world, and that's kind of, yeah, I just never thought, and that's been it. But it's something that puzzled me because I love waterfalls. I've just been fascinated by them, and every time I travel, I try to go to a waterfall more than anything. But what happens is, I love Costa Rica as a place to travel to,
Mm,
and Costa Rica,
mm,
throughout the dry season, it doesn't rain for months, yet water
right,
is flowing down from the top of river, and it's never once snowed in Costa Rica. But water is
right.
constantly flowing down from the mountains, feeding civilization down below. Well, the fourth phase of water is the answer to that. And now, going back to hydroviews, A hydro view is a viewpoint predicated and bound by the facts of science, the laws of nature, and the teachings of the Urantia book. So it's a philosophical construct with three legs. And the Urantia book is unique because it's, well, I don't want to call it a religious book because there's no doctrine, there's no dogma, there's no religion. I can call it a religious book from the standpoint of the true meaning of religion. There's kind of two meanings. One meaning to bind fast, but another one that Cicero coined after the days of Jesus was religare, and religare is the other one. Religare means to question everything in your search for God. So for me, that's true religion. I'm a yogi as well. I love doing yoga, and yoga is a practice, and it's also a religion because it's something you do to try and open up. Yoga, the simple word, means yoke with God. So back to a hydro view just became a way to look at the world in a little broader perspective. And water is the broadest perspective we'll ever start to search through. It's what when Jesus said the water of life, we know that no organism lives without water. Even bacteria, it needs water to survive. So that hydro view is kind of the foundation of my book, Wisdom Accelerators. And it is the how should I say there in this particular book, there's 33 accelerators in the book, and each one of them I look as a resource to help you build wisdom and understand it. And in the beginning, it starts out a lot about what mind is and the circuitry of mind and consciousness, but it's through water and it's through this fourth phase of water. I kind of went a roundabout way to say what this fourth phase is, and now I'll tell you. When water touches a hydrophilic surface, it changes. A hydrophilic surface meaning any water-loving surface. Every cell of every organism is a water-loving surface. So when it touches it, it changes the water. It actually becomes a new substance. It becomes H3O2. And understand that it may only be a few nanometers to a few thousand nanometers in thickness. It takes 100,000 nanometers to make a thin sheet of paper. So it's a very
Wow.
thin layer of water. That water expels all positive protons, it expels all impurities, and it becomes a crystalline structure, much like ice. We've all seen ice crystals and snowflakes and that crystalline structure, except that this is still in liquid form. It's in liquid form, but it has a negative charge. So when negative and positive are touching each other, you've created a jump. There's an attraction that's always going on. So if you get a little push from your heart in the circulatory system, it's the reason your heart can pump 60,000 miles of blood vessels. You couldn't push it with just a pump. No pump is strong enough to do that. It's also the reason water climbs to the top of the tallest trees and exacerbates out into the sky. And it's the reason that water is able to climb up inside the tallest mountains, come out the little cracks and crevices, and feed civilization down below. So that was a long answer to a short question.
No, but it's fascinating because I've never really thought of, well, water in that way, especially of like going up the mountain to be able to come out. Because when you asked me about water, then I started to think a lot of it. It's like, but how does it get up to those high mountaintops if there are places that, like Costa Rica, for example, there isn't snow. So it's not of it melting. I was thinking coming from Canada, I'm like, oh, snow in the mountains, it melts throughout the entire summer. But it's interesting that, yeah, and there's places that it doesn't have snow and the waterfalls are still going. So water is moving upward, climbing places to be able to fall downward to the lower levels. So it's
Right, and
a
this is the
very
reason that
fascinating thought.
there's always been floods throughout human history. Water where the snow cap went starts to come down, floods, washes nutrients down into the lower valleys, and this is where civilization has grown. In fact, it's a kind of a unique story. It tells us in the Aranchu book that the story of Noah was really predicated on a guy. It's like God was never so pissed off at the world that he said, "Hey, I got to drown everybody and start over again." However, there was a guy named Noah that saw that, hey, this floods keep wiping out my house. I got an idea. I'm going to build my house like a boat. And if the floods start to come, I'm going to put everybody inside of it. And the worst case is, I live in a new property next year. We didn't have the property rights that we have today. That's a relatively
Right.
new invention compared to, thousands of years ago. So he just his boat moved, but he had new property and he still had a home to live in. So it's kind of a unique twist, and it's like one of the many revelations that come from the Urantia book.
And so how did you come up with the 33 for your book?
Well, everybody thinks of three as a spiritual number. 3 and 7 are two spiritual numbers.
Mm.
And the reason they're spiritual numbers is if you think before time, before space, there was infinite knowledge. We call that God, the Father.
Mhm.
And we have, and Jesus said, or the Bible said, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. The Word is frequency. So you had all
Right.
knowledge and frequency. When frequency started being expressed in its varied forms, it started forming everything that could be. So you had the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. You've got those three. So the 33 was just kind of a play on the three. But then if you take the three, just to go why seven's a spiritual number, so you have the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, the Father and the Son and the Spirit, the Father and the Spirit, and the Father, Son, and Spirit. So you get these 7 aspects of the original three that go into that. So the 33 was probably a mistake. I got the book a little too big and took me too long to write. But it's also there's a lot of good stuff in it. I talk about
Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to let you know about the Mind Matters weekly newsletter that is full of actionable tips to help you rewire your brain to live the life that you desire. Sign up for it at sallypeterson.com. And when you do, you'll get the top 5 brain hacks for peak performance. Again, you can get it at sallypeterson.com. Now back to the show.
a lot of things from motherhood to government, religion and governments, the 7 adjutant mind spirits. I like to tie the Urantia book tells us that mind consists of 7 adjutant mind spirits, 7 circuits of mind. And in my study, I postulate that these 7 circuits are the same as the 7 chakra, the root chakra being the spirit of
Okay.
intuition. That spirit of
Mhm.
intuition is the spirit when life was first planted here. It was the spirit that let the mycelium start to know how to grow and create everything down below, the whole root system, the root chakra, the root system. People
Mm.
think of tree hugging as kind of this crazy thing. That doesn't mean anything. But the reality is, and I used to think that, but now as I think about it, okay, this spirit of intuition, if I want to build my intuition, connecting where this is the strongest, the root system of trees, is a good way to help build my intuitive powers. Then there's
Mm.
understanding, knowledge, courage, counsel. Then the last 2 of the spirits are worship and wisdom. And worship and wisdom are unique because only humans have worship and wisdom. And so my book, Wisdom Accelerators, is really a book of resources to help you develop your wisdom. I have quotes from hundreds of different people. It starts with a little poem and then few quotes from different people, a quote from the Urantia book, a short essay. then I like to ask a question, and this is where I used AI a bit in it. I took the question, I would ask the question, and I'd say, AI, give me 25 answers to this question from great philosophers, leaders, teachers, people, whether it be Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Albert Einstein, whoever it might be. And then I come up with a little bit of an essay or a paragraph essay on the answers to the question. So it's really it does a deep dive into what wisdom is or what the particular word be. Say, be it humor or motherhood or democracy. They're all important words.
What is wisdom to you?
Wisdom is applied knowledge. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but when you use it effectively, that is what really wisdom is. Taking that knowledge and doing something, turning it into something a little bit better. Just as, two or three people are much stronger than any one of them all alone, a few pieces of knowledge combined creates something much better than the original piece was. So that's what really
Right.
wisdom is, growing in lots of different ways.
Hmm.
And
And where do you think we've, I don't want to say gone wrong, but where do you think we've started to become disconnected with that energy, kind of gut instinct feeling? And because we've all had moments where it was like, something doesn't feel right, or I should do this, or like, and we call it that, oh, red flag, or that gut instinct and feeling. And I've just found that we don't really have that much of a connection as maybe previous generations, that we're just not as intuitive. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. We're just not as intuitive anymore at kind of this stage in time.
great question. And it has a lot to do. Early on, I think religion was part of the problem. Because people started being dictated to. Religion and government had been so intertwined with each other, and people were using it as a control mechanism. So they started to rebel from the possibilities when they started getting the opportunity, and that was one of the great beauties to democracy is it gave us the opportunity to rebel against religion, as well as to open up new facets of religion that felt more right. So ideally, there is a qual in each of us, a part of our heart that wants us to know more, but it's never going to force us to know more. So and this is why, there's not a religion out there or a truth wisdom program that doesn't talk about the value of meditation. And I have a hard time meditating today. I try and do it every single day, but to me, it's kind of a chore sometimes. And then there's other times that I'm so blissful, I love it. But I can't tell you
I'm
it's
I'm the
easy.
same.
Yeah, I do it because I know that it's just like going to the gym. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily fun, but when
Right.
I'm done, I feel so good that I did it. And if I don't do it, especially
Mm,
if I don't do it for a couple of days, I miss it.
right.
Meditation is a lot the same. Now and when we have changed so much, I like to look at 1860 as a very pivotal point in human history. 1860, democracy was in turmoil. Abraham Lincoln just got elected president. The Civil War was imminent, and we had just discovered electricity. We knew something about it, but we didn't know how to play with it. Now we were
Mhm.
beginning to make electric motors and starting to change. That changed everything. Gutenberg, a couple hundred years earlier, had invented the printing press. That was a major paradigm shift. The next paradigm shift was the invention or the use of electricity, learning how to harness it and use it in an effective way. That brought just a host of new possibilities that started coming to us. So to your original question, why aren't we doing it? We're inundated with information, and you ask, what is wisdom? Well, wisdom is using information effectively, and you don't need a whole lot of information to be wise, and you can have lots of information and not be wise. It's how you use the information that is what brings you to wisdom. And if you start to use it to, how can I connect to this higher source that I know is in me? How can I heal this relationship I have with this person? Detachment is like a real huge factor. If you're studying yoga, yoga is and detachment is so strong, and yoga is far more than the physical poses of yoga. The teachings, the 8 limbs of yoga are really about being a better person, and detachment is really an essence of that teaching. So detaching from all this outside flutter that's all around us to go inside and ask the questions, to develop the spirit of intuition, the spirit of understanding, spirit of knowledge, courage, counsel, ultimately worship and wisdom.
But it's hard. It's hard to block out all the stuff, especially now, because every 3 seconds for some people, there's a buzz, there's a beep, there's a notification, there's a something going on, and some people are like, "How do I first block all that out? And then how do I go inside? What does that mean?"
Yeah, I mean, I love my cell phone and using it, but I also know there's times I turn it off, or I turn off my notifications, so that if I'm going to start writing, if I'm going into my meditation, I don't want it talking to me, because this is my time with God, my time for me, my time to get something more important done. And who likes something I posted on Facebook really doesn't have any bearing on it. That's not wisdom. But I'm trying to go for the wisdom. So there's, finding time to turn off these electronic gadgets in our life, to slow down, to pick up a paperback book and read it instead of watching the news, or just looking at posts on Instagram or wherever that other facet is. Uh,
And I
I
think
mentioned too, to your audience, I didn't say
Mhm.
anything. I mentioned the Urantia book here a few times. I'd like to just give a very brief
Sure,
overview,
yes,
if I
of
may.
course.
The Urantia book is unique in that it has no known human authors. It's got 2,097 pages of information, and it's broken into 4 parts: the central and super universe, the local universe, the history of Urantia, or the planet Earth, and the last 700 pages of the life and teachings of Jesus. Earlier in the book, it tells us who Jesus was before he became Jesus, why he came to this planet, who Adam and Eve were, what the mind is, what the soul is, what a thing called the thought adjuster is. And that's kind of something that spends a lot of time telling us about the thought adjuster. That is a fragment of God that literally comes to dwell within our hearts, that is there to talk to us and is always guiding us. It's part of that spirit of worship that I talked about earlier. And that spirit of worship is also, meditation is an act of worship. It's really what builds that level. And worship comes before wisdom, so that as we develop this spirit of wisdom, or worship, we actually start to use our knowledge to become wisdom a little bit more. So that fragment of God within us is something real. It's something the animals don't have. It's something that makes us special. And it is called the father of the Urantia book says it's the father of our soul, while mind is the mother of our soul. But it's important to understand mind is a mother, not like a loving mother, but mother being, okay, I'm pushing you out of the nest. You're on your own now. And, I bore you, you're going, but you got to do it from here on out. And its mind is unique in that it's can be very unruly unless it's controlled. I like to call mind is like a puppy dog. Well trained, it serves you in tremendous ways. Untrained, it pisses all over your good intentions. Uh, so
Well, and
it's
that is very true because I mean, everybody who's watching or listening, we know that all of a sudden strange, weird thoughts or memories or things will just pop up into our mind out of nowhere.
absolutely. That's where I mentioned detachment real briefly earlier. And
Mm,
detachment is taking the mind and saying, whoa, 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 let go of this thought. Someone said something, I took it offensively. They had no idea that I'm using it in my head to, wars have been created this way. You know, families have broken up just because someone said something and someone else thought they said meant differently. And it's crazy. So detaching from our thoughts is essential to having balance and what you talked about earlier, to going back into intuition. We're so busy letting our mind control us and not controlling our mind that we don't find the happiness that is ours to receive.
right. And I say that to people often that it's incredible how we've come so far with technology and knowledge, but we are terrible, terrible communicators. Because we've all, as you said, we've all been in a situation where we've gotten into an argument with someone. Doesn't matter who the person is, but we've all been there. We've gotten into an argument, and then that person comes back to us and says, "Well, you said blah blah blah." And we respond, "Well, yeah, but I didn't mean it that way." It's
Exactly.
and we've all done it. I've done it. I've been on both ends. I've said, "Well, you said this," and they've said that to me, and vice versa. Somebody says, "You said," and I'm thinking, "Oh, yeah, but I didn't mean it like that." And so it I mean, it's unfortunate and it's something I think that we need to work on because, we're progressing in so many ways that we really need to get better at our communication. And then too, to find ways to also control our mind because our mind changes our memory. And they've shown studies that if you have a memory and over the span of a few years, you remember that memory, we don't remember it exactly how it was. And every time we remember it, it changes slightly. So if it was a bad memory, every time it's a little bit worse. Or if it was a great memory, that day was a little bit better every time we remember it as years go by. So we tend to, if we look at bad memories, and I mean, and there are horrible things that have happened to people and that they've gone through. I don't want to say nothing was that bad, but in a lot of things that weren't like completely horrible, we tend to remember them worse than what they were. And those exciting, great times, maybe like as a kid, and we went to Disney for our birthday. Yes, it was fun, it was wonderful, but we remember it was so amazing. But it was fun and it was wonderful and it was great, but it wasn't so amazing. We just slowly
Yeah,
each time we
when we
remember it,
go
we
the
think it
second
was
time
better
and
and
watch
better.
a movie, the second time we
Yeah,
go there, just I remember it as so much more the first time. And the same was true with even
right,
movies. Watching it a second time, it was good, but not as awesome, is what you're saying. And the other thing about mind is what mind, it's one thing what it does to our relationships with other people, but what we do with our mind to ourselves, our self-talks that I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And I do it. And I know better, but I find myself, my book didn't take off the way I wanted it to take off. And I beat myself up. Am I gonna have to go back to work? Da, 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 da. And, no, this is what I chose to do. This is what I have to do. And so you have to keep a self-talk that is affirming of what your goals, what your ambitions, what your life is really about, and know that uh, it was not meant to be real easy. Life was
right.
not meant to be real easy, but it's the hardships, it's the pain. I mentioned earlier that I had cancer at one point, and it was one of my greatest teachers in life, and because it really helped me to change earlier. And I had some other experiences prior to that that kind of really brought me into a spiritual life, but they were very harsh experiences, near-death experiences that I look at as ultimately they were very beneficial for me. Had I not went through them, I wouldn't have been the person that I am today. And so the self-talk that we give ourselves and what we do, how we do it, who we are is so very important. That's where affirmations kind of come into play. And
Pardon the interruption. If you're liking the show so far, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really means a lot to me. It helps grow the show and the channel and to the show. Yeah, and I mean, it is incredible how with the use of our mind, we can put ourselves in a bad mood or we can put ourselves in a good mood. We can make ourselves stressed out with nothing going on. We've just solely done it with our mind. And a prime example of that is, you're leaving for work one day, you're in a fine mood, you're driving to work and say it's on Monday, and then you remember, oh, so and so is going to be there and you don't like that person and you got into a bit of a disagreement on Friday and you can't wait till you get there, and if you see them you're going to say this and this, and by the time you get into work you've made yourself angry just because of those thoughts that you were having. But we could
yeah,
flip it the other way and say, if we're kind of grumpy or having a bad day, it's like, no, maybe I should think about, or I'm gonna do this on the weekend and I'm gonna plan to do that. And this is gonna be fun. And we think about good positive things, we can change our mind and our emotion and our whole energy in that same way. So if we can make ourselves angry, we can also make ourselves happy. If we can make ourselves stressed out, we can also make ourselves relax.
absolutely. The Urantia book has a quote. I can't remember it per se, but it's like, mind is your ship, the adjuster is your pilot, human will is the captain. Human will has the ability to run the ship on the shoals of destruction or up the rivers of enlightenment. And, it's what we choose to do with the gifts that we have. One of the other accelerators in the book that I talk about is that of gratitude. Gratitude is literally everything. When we learn to
Right.
be grateful, I had an experience one time where I was actually in a solitary confinement, locked up in a prison, and I got to read the book The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. And in it, she tells the story of the German guards where they had gotten locked up for smuggling Jews through Holland and out of the country. She had gotten locked up and they had managed to smuggle a little Bible in there. And they were reading in Philippians and it said, be joyful always, pray continually, and thank God for everything. Well, the sister said, well, let's thank God for these fleas. Of course, I'm not thanking God for these fleas. They're eating us alive. No, it said, thank God for everything. And then they later found out that the guards never came into the barracks and raped them, beat them, or killed them because the fleas were so bad they wouldn't even come into the barracks. So there was even a reason to be thankful for the fleas. And so I've used that. Jesus's watchword, according to the Urantia book, was fear not. And I realized, okay, if I choose to be grateful for everything, no matter how bad this seems now, I'm going to be grateful for it. I have no more near need of being fear. Now, it's easier to say that than it is to put it into practice.
Of course. Of
But
course.
being aware of it, realizing that, okay, even if it doesn't turn out the way I want, I'm still going to be grateful. I'm still going to move forward and life is going to be okay. And if you're grateful for things, you don't start to harbor judgment. You don't have to go into the other issues of mind that start to play. So
Right. And
gratitude is the
y-
controller of the mind.
it really is. And then, to be grateful, because I say to myself too, things could always be worse. Right? No matter where we're at, we're still here. We still have people around us. Things could be worse, and all the time things change. Since the only consistency about life is everything changes, and we all go through tough times and rough times, and of course those vary from person to person, but nobody just has a great, easy peasy, simple life. We all go through hard times. We all go through loss. We all go through painful times. And then we have good times or we have nice times. And it's the growth that we get in those tough times and painful times that also, I think, make us appreciate the better times even more. And I always try to find the silver lining for something. It's not always easy, and I catch myself grumbling about things and being upset, and then I have to be like, "Okay, yeah, it's not great now, but let's just keep going, and things will get better, and things will improve." And it's that thing as well as they say, you find what you're looking for. So if I'm thinking things are gonna get better, things are gonna improve, this shall pass, then little things like, "Oh, that's nice," and that's something that's good. But if I'm then in the mindset of everything is bad, everything's negative, my life always sucks, I always have bad luck, and then I'll find those things like I'll drop a cup and it'll be like, "Yep, of course, because I have bad luck. I'm gonna break a glass. I'm gonna," and we tend to then find and bring that negative energy and those things towards us, which is very similar, I think, that we have to be careful on social media is because what we look for or what we like, what we watch, what we comment on, the algorithms will bring us more of that. And so even though like there's things that I read a title, I'm like, I know it's clickbait and I want to, but I'm like, I know if I click this or like it or read it or watch it, I'm going to start to get more of that. Do I want more of that in my life? Right? And we kind of we need to, as we program our minds and train our minds while we're on social media and things, we need to program that algorithm as best we can to give us the things that bring us joy, that bring positivity, that bring gratitude, that help us learn things that we're interested in and not end up going down that negative rabbit hole.
Absolutely. And earlier you asked about the three, the factor of three, and I said, the Father, the Son, or the Word, the frequency. And these frequencies are real. And the more we're learning about frequencies, the more real we're finding that they affect everything. The frequencies of your thought do bring in people to your life. They do bring circumstances in and around you. So it's so important to take control of our thoughts, to use our mind, the vessel that we have, to maybe not the best of its ability, but the better parts of its ability. And ultimately, and forgive ourselves for being human. That's a big point in the Urantia
Right.
book. We need to forgive ourselves for being human. Don't beat yourself up because you made a stupid mistake. We all make stupid mistakes. And forgive
Mhm.
yourself and move forward. Wake up the next. How often have you went to bed just so depressed or upset, only to wake up the next day and say, okay, that's
It's a
over.
new
Let's
day.
deal with it and move
Yeah, it's
on.
another chance.
It's another
Exactly,
chance.
absolutely. So, Jack, if people were interested in getting your book, where can they find it?
Wisdom Accelerators on Amazon. Right now, it's just on Amazon.
Okay.
Because it's a full color book, there's a lot of really beautiful, kind of like you see here. How do you do that there?
Oh, yeah.
Illustrations in it. It's kind of expensive. It's $33, but I literally left the PDF or the Kindle version at $5 because I really want people to
Okay.
have it and do it. So some people just can't afford $33 for a book, but I will say I used the best quality paper I could in order to make the book. And can I read a chapter or just a poem from it? This is just
Mm.
one
Well, I think it,
brief.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. That would be great.
Okay. This is one on beliefs. Beliefs
Okay.
blossom in the boundless beauty of books. The building of bonds and a boatload of bewildering baggage. Beliefs can be blinding and baffling, brilliant and belligerent, as well as boastful and brash. Beliefs are the bedrock of both fear and courage, the bounty of bravery and the burglar of betterment. Beware of beliefs that belittle brotherhood and add burdens to bonding and butcher brilliance. Burn beliefs of blame, brutality, and bravado as they burnish the brightness and blessings of godliness. So there's 66 poems within the book. Each accelerator has
Wow.
two poems and a lot of different quotes from different people. So, recently I started thinking about the word resources, and I really realized that
Mm-hmm.
that's really what they are, is resources to
Mm-hmm.
fuel the mind to develop wisdom.
Mm-hmm. I could see myself with that book and just kind of have it and be what do I need to know today? And you open it up to that page that you need to know. Like I like having books
A
like that
number
sometimes
of
where you can
people
read
tell me
cover to
exactly
cover,
that.
or it's just what do I need
No,
today?
no,
And
it's
you
not a
get
book you
that.
need to go from cover to cover by any means.
Hmm.
It's really just that. Where do I need to be today and find
Right.
where the piece speaks to you today. But it's like
Oh,
anything.
great.
And your rancher book is that same way. I
Hmm.
never recommend anybody to start in the beginning. The foreword is the most difficult part of the book by far. I've read it probably 14 times, and I still have a difficult time trying to read the foreword.
Right.
Uh, so
Right. Well, we will make sure that we have the Amazon link in the show notes and the link to your website as well, so people can easily get the book and find out more about you and what you're doing and everything that's going on with your website. So I just want
that
to
QR
thank you
code here is a
very
link to my
much.
website.
Oh, perfect. So they can screenshot that and get that. So thank you very much for your time today,
It was
Jack. I
my
really
pleasure, Sally.
appreciate it.
Appreciate your informative questions.